Welcome to the inaugural episode of Realizing Rural. Today we have a very special guest joining us, attorney Wil Alexander, a prominent figure in our community and a dedicated personal injury attorney. Wil's experience in advocating for those who have suffered injury or injustice has made him quickly a respected voice in the legal field. Wil, we're honored to have you here with us and appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us today.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. Super excited to be here. I think we're going to touch on a lot of interesting topics and things that I'm passionate about, and I know you are too. So super excited to, one, be supportive of the podcast, but also to be on the podcast with you and get this thing going. It should be a great time.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. So let's start off just taking people kind of a peek behind the curtain, okay, from Wil Alexander, right? So you graduated class of 2009, Barnwell High School graduate, went to Clemson University. Talk a little bit about that, and then specifically you ended up at Georgia Law School, how you decided to go to law school. Just let's give everybody a quick peek behind the curtain.
Yes, so like you said, graduated Barnwell High School, class of 2009. Very proud to be a graduate of Barnwell High School, public school here in Barnwell. Went from high school to Clemson, did applied econ, economics there. Always had a thought of wanting to be in business somehow, right? Didn't really know where that would go. I took chemistry 101 at Clemson and realized I would not be the third Alexander in the textile industry because I did not do that well in chemistry, and then chose to do applied econ. That kind of fit me well, fit my interest. I had a teacher, Miss Scruggs, in high school that I loved government and econ, and so that kind of made my path of where I wanted to go. Didn't really know what I wanted to do after undergrad. Wanted to go to some sort of grad school, toyed around with getting some kind of master's degree or PhD in econ, but chose to go the legal route, mainly for the flexibility of it. And my uncle, Harry Dest, was a big influence on me growing up. He was a person that I respected a lot, how he carried himself. And he's an attorney, a very well accomplished trial attorney in South Carolina. And so that really shaped my choice on wanting to go to law school. I always felt like looking at attorneys that they had a big impact on a community. They had a big impact on people, and it provided that flexibility. So ended up at Georgia School of Law and enjoyed my time there. The whole time at Georgia, sort of wanted to go that business route. What I'm doing now is a bit different than what I thought I'd be doing, and we can touch on maybe why that is. But yeah, that's sort of the background of how I got here, and especially from the education standpoint.
Now, throughout your law school career, I know you did a lot of summer internships at some various larger cities. You also, post-law school, clerked for the Honorable Judge Gibbons out of Chester. And then eventually you decided to move back to Barnwell and ultimately open your own practice. Talk to us a little bit about that journey, post-law school, some of those internships, and then what ultimately led you back to home.
One of the best experiences I had at Georgia School of Law was the different opportunities they give you. So big feeder, obviously, from the University of Georgia is feeding into Atlanta. So my first summer, my 1L year, which is your first year of law school, is called your 1L year. I went and worked for First American Title Insurance Company doing commercial real estate title, and that was in Atlanta. Lived in Johns Creek and then worked in the King and Queen buildings there. That was an awesome experience. Really enjoyed that. They're a very large corporation, and working there, living in Atlanta was a great experience. Obviously, a huge city, and something very different than what I was used to. My 2L year at Georgia. So my second year, spring semester, I did what was called the DC semester in practice, where I live in DC and I worked for the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Division of Corporation Finance. And so lived in DC and took night classes for one semester, that spring semester, which was another great experience. Obviously being in Washington, DC, as you know, is a really, really amazing place to be, right? Just being able to visit different places, but also being able to work there, I think for a large agency was unique, and provided me kind of a snapshot of what it would be like to live somewhere like that post graduating. And then also going from the DC semester in practice, I then went to Manhattan and worked for a private equity firm there, still on that kind of business track, and really enjoyed my time there as well. Lived with some friends in White Plains and got the commuter experience down to Manhattan, and that was another really good experience. So I had three awesome experiences in law school at some of the largest cities, really, and most powerful in the world, and so that shaped my outlook on things and was a great experience for me.
And then ultimately, what really inspired you to move back to Barnwell and open up and become a personal injury attorney? I know you clerked for Judge Gibbons and then kind of ended up back here. Tell us a little bit about how that transpired.
Working for Judge Gibbons, I would say, is the most impactful thing that's ever happened to me, from a professional kind of career move. That was eye opening. He's been a great mentor to me, and was a great mentor to me. And the way that I wound up with that clerkship. So what the clerkship is, and I really honestly never knew what a judicial clerkship was right before I went to law school, or even in law school. So I'd gone rewinding, went, did those experiences in Atlanta, DC, New York. I enjoyed it, but I didn't see myself wanting to live in one of those places or living in one of those big cities. I'd say before that experience, I'd have said, I want the bright lights, I want the big city, bring all that on. Wasn't what I expected it to be, or didn't see myself fitting in a spot like that. And so was looking to get back to South Carolina, knew, hey, I want to get back to South Carolina, preferably somewhere within driving distance of our family, and wanted to be back in a smaller area, and back in South Carolina. And so had a buddy that was a year below me in law school that knew Judge Gibbons was looking for a clerk. And at that time, I really wasn't even planning on taking the bar. I didn't know. I kind of wanted to go just maybe do business stuff. Didn't really know where that would end up, and so ended up meeting with Judge Gibbons, got that clerkship. Clerkship, basically, you work under a circuit court judge in South Carolina. So circuit court in South Carolina is the highest trial level court in the state. So you have general sessions, which is criminal. You have common pleas, which is civil. And that's generally where I practice now. And so that clerkship with Judge Gibbons just gave a huge eye opener into how you really practice law, what an attorney actually does, how they impact people. Chester is where I lived. That's a small town as well, rural. And then, Judge Gibbons really gave me a lot of motivation and encouragement to saying, hey, if you do want to go back home, that's something that you can make a huge impact on people, and be a hopefully a positive force in your community.
And I really want to dig into some of the rural, growing up in Barnwell and having moved back to Barnwell and the rural aspect here. But before we get into that, just really quick, what are some of the common types? Just tell everybody, what are some of the common types of injury cases that you deal with, and then maybe just one or two kind of misconceptions or myths about personal injury law that maybe you thought before you started practicing, or that maybe people here in South Carolina and all over may have about personal injury law.
So typical kind of case that we handle, we represent individual people, which is one of the things that I and my wife Carson works with me. We met at Georgia Law. She practices with me now. That we really enjoy the most is our clients are individual people where something unfortunate happens to them, and a lot of times they don't know where to turn, and so we're able to represent our friends, our neighbors, our fellow community members in a time where they really have nowhere else to turn. They've been injured due to someone else's negligence. It's somebody else's fault. And we're able to step in and provide them representation on trying to get some sort of compensation for their injury. So the most typical kind of case that we handle is a car wreck case. Somebody's driving down the road, they get rear-ended, they have medical bills, they have property damage, they miss work. We try to get them compensated and back on their feet, and be able to answer questions that they would have and really navigate them through that process. Because the one thing that I think people don't realize is when you're in a situation like that, you really feel helpless. You think that the insurance and this is probably going to go into the one of the misconceptions. I'd say the thought that I had before I started doing this line of work is, hey, I have good insurance. My parents have good insurance. The insurance company is going to look out for me. That's what I have insurance for. They're going to take care of it. That is not entirely true. Insurance companies are out, generally speaking, from my experience. The ones that we deal with are out for their bottom line, right? They want to look out for their own interests. They are in these huge cities, right? Their corporate offices are in large cities, and they frankly probably don't care that much about individuals in Barnwell County like I do. And so one of the misconceptions would be, man, plaintiffs attorneys are out there. They're just trying to make a buck off of a bad situation for somebody, when in reality, a plaintiff's attorney is the voice for somebody against a giant corporation that is trying to, pad their bottom line, or trying to make as much money as they can. And so the complexities also, I would say, is a misconception. I think people sometimes think of plaintiffs attorneys as, hey, they're ambulance chasers. It's easy. You send a demand in, right, demanding this money, and the money magically appears. That couldn't be farther from the truth. In my experience, it's very complex. You're dealing with a lot of one. You're dealing with the insurance companies and car insurance companies for a car wreck case, right? But you're also dealing with Medicare, Medicaid. You're dealing with health insurance, how all those come together, and also trying to, from an emotional standpoint, trying to help people when things go awry in their life, right? You got to keep in mind that this is a traumatic experience for individuals, for their families. It throws their life into chaos. You can think about how folks are, just if you're driving down the road and your car gets totaled or something, a deer runs out, right? It's nobody's fault really. A deer runs out. You think of the complexities that just adds to your life when you can't get around, especially in a rural place like we are, where you don't have really good public transportation. That can certainly just change your life. And so I think that aspect of it also is probably a myth. It's not. It's the thing that I enjoy about our job, but it's one complexity of it is you're really trying to help people navigate a difficult time. And so being there, trying to be as empathetic as you can through that process is very helpful, I think, to them.
Yeah, that's great insight, and really this podcast, the goal is to one, highlight individuals who are doing great things in rural community, also some of the successes that rural communities have, and some of the challenges, right? And so, kudos to you for what you've done to grow your practice in a rural area. Specifically, when you start talking about access to certain legal resources in rural areas, it can be a challenge. So, can you give us just a little example or some things that you've done either at your firm or with your clients to help them kind of bridge the gap to make sure that they're going to receive equal access to justice from a rural area?
Sure. So, and that's a good point. A couple things that we try to do. The number one is we live here in the community. We are community members. We go out and go to the farmers market. We see people. Our daughter is here. She goes to daycare here. I mean, we live in Barnwell County. We are, your friends, your neighbors. We want to be accessible to people, answer questions as best we can. If we don't maybe handle that type of practice area we want you to call. We want to have an open door and get back to you as quick as we can to answer those questions as best we can, and really trying to bridge that gap between, like you're saying, not necessarily having access to an attorney. We want to be there, and specifically available to people, even if it's not, personal injury case, right? The second thing that we do for each of our new clients, we send a welcome packet. So it's a box. It's a welcome. It's called our welcome packet, and we'll send a folder with the timeline of a case, right? And what we're going to be doing on your case at this stage in the case. So let's say pre-suit, right? We're doing an investigation. We're getting the accident report. We're talking to law enforcement. We are maybe sending a FOIA request where we get other documentation, and then what is our expectation of what our client should be doing. And so hopefully that educates them on, hey, this is the track of a case and how it's going to go. And then the other thing that we try to do just from a community standpoint is to be as involved as we can. We try to put out videos, educational videos on specifically on our practice area. So on personal injury, on, hey, what are some things you should look out for? What are some do's and don'ts? As much as we can be sort of in the forefront of putting out educational information, we try to do that on social media.
Yeah, that's really good. And digging in really to Barnwell specifically, you grew up here, moved here in sixth grade, moved away. We've covered some of that. The reality is you really could have chosen to live virtually wherever you would have liked. Married and have started to raise a family here in Barnwell. What are some of the unique aspects of a rural life that you've come to appreciate or that you find advantageous for your family?
Unique aspects to rural life that I find advantageous to my family or that I enjoy is the sense of community. I think that's difficult to describe if you have never been maybe in a small town or lived in a rural area or a tight knit area. That sense of community where both good and bad people rally together, put their differences aside, and they rally together either to support a community member who is going through a tough time or to uplift a community member that's going through a great time to celebrate them. I think that's unique. It's something that maybe when you're here, right, you take it for granted a bit, but when you're elsewhere in a bigger area, it's kind of the ironic thing of at least from what I've experienced, the bigger, more populated an area, the less people that I really knew, or the less people that I felt community and attached to. I think that's unique, and I think that's a great place to raise a family. I think there's a lot of positives that can come of that. The people, you can go to the grocery store and see a lot of people that their family, who's working at the daycare, taking care of your kids, the teachers, a lot of things. And so I think that's a huge one for me.
Yeah, that sense of community. That's when Taylor and I were, we lived in Charleston for several years. When we decided to move back home, obviously family was a big factor, but the sense of community and how everyone comes together and just knowing everyone in that kind of small town life was one of the big drivers for us when we moved back. Some of the things that when we're in rural areas we start talking about. Obviously, I'm on council here. I've been serving for several years now, since 2018. We're always looking at things that we're doing well, but also some challenges, right? So, and there's plenty of them, whether it comes to infrastructure, resources, economic development. What are some of in your opinion, from a business leader in the community, what are your opinion of some of the key opportunities that Barnwell has in front of it, and also maybe some obstacles that we have as a rural community?
I would say on the opportunity side, tons of great opportunity now. I think the internet, especially, it's sort of an opportunity and an obstacle. I'll treat it as an opportunity right now. I think with the way the internet is, with Amazon one day shipping, that's changed rural life in a lot of ways. I think with doing Zoom like we're doing, being able to have Zoom meetings, people being able to work remotely, that makes people uh, reevaluate where they live, how they live. I think having positive energy going. I mean, I would say Barnwell, in my view, right now, with the positive energy going on, with the chamber, with the innovation center, which with all the farmers market, just a ton of different things going on. I think we're only scratching the surface of what it could be. And rural area like Barnwell has its unique opportunities. We're never gonna likely, never want to say never, you're likely never going to have a Chick-fil-A, right? If that's really what you wake up and you want to be able to drive 15 minutes and get to a Chick-fil-A, probably not going to happen. But there are a lot of positives, I think. One, that sense of community. Two, the opportunity to grow, but in a strategic manner, and keep the great things about the small town, but also make things better. I think one of the challenges or an obstacle is internet access for people. I mean, to me, that needs to be, and I know it is. I'm not as well versed on all that's going on as you are, obviously, but I mean, to me, that's as important as electricity. It really is to live and be able, for an education standpoint, for just access to you know internet for shopping, anything like that's a huge. I think that's a big obstacle, but I also think that that's gaining traction and that's an opportunity. And then I think too, you gotta think of places that you can live to make a big impact. That's one thing that I enjoy about Barnwell is you can make a large impact probably quickly in a small town. I think that's a big opportunity for people who want to maybe move to a small town. I would say another obstacle, especially if I was somebody like how it was for my wife Carson, moving to a small town. Sometimes I think people would think it's very insular. But I think that people are much more willing to accept somebody from that didn't grow up here than you might think. It's just if you grow up here, you kind of know everybody, right? Doesn't mean that you don't want to meet new people or don't want to welcome new people. I think that's both an obstacle and an opportunity.
Yeah, that's great on the broadband side. I was telling someone the other day, if if you're, you know, my age, 30, 34, 35, and younger, you really can't you really can't expect someone to move to a place that doesn't have broadband. So I'm really excited about the investment that the states put forward and some of the investment and infrastructure opportunities there coming forth with broadband. It's really going to give uh, all the rural places in South Carolina, but specifically Barnwell, I'm excited about, and Allendale as well, because it's really going to transform the access to educational opportunities for the kids, as well as just modern creature comforts that we've all come to enjoy, whether it be YouTube TV or YouTube or Disney Plus or something like that. So to me that's a huge obstacle that is underway, and I'm hoping to one of these days I'm hoping to have on our podcast someone with on the broadband side, because I think that would be a really interesting thing for everybody to kind of understand what's transpired so far and what's going to happen in the future. And there's a sense of urgency by the federal government, by the state. I think COVID, if COVID did anything for um, positive, then it was probably driving broadband further, probably 10 years faster than maybe it would have come, just because the everyone realized the access to broadband for our students particularly was not there. And so being able to kind of drive that forward, I think was beneficial, and kind of let everybody see the necessity of it. But I really think that's going to be a critical piece as we continue to grow, and there's progress being made, but also there's there's patience that needs to be had as well, right? There's a lot of progress being made, but also it takes time. It takes time. So I look forward to kind of sharing that with everybody as we go on down the road. So to close, I'm doing what I call the Realizing Rural 10. Okay, so these are going to be very quick. This can be quick, one answer, two answer, one sentence. Shouldn't take long to answer, although some are going to be profound. So just take a few minutes. We're just going to run through them real quick and then let everybody kind of go for the day. Okay. All right. So here we go.
Ready?
So number one, what is one thing you love most about rural areas?
Community, for sure. And again, that's hard to describe, but you know it if you have it.
How do you recharge and find inspiration in your daily life?
Family, spending time with my family, my daughter, parents, um, brother. That's a huge motivating factor.
What is your favorite outdoor activity or hobby?
Golf, easy.
What is what's your handicap?
8.4.
um, what is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Be I would say don't don't try to rush things. Things are gonna work out. Just keep being the best you can be every day. Probably the same thing I need to tell myself today. Don't try not to enjoy where you're at, and obviously you need to have goals and visions and things like that, but don't lose sight of the good things that are happening in your life today because you want to be somewhere and be successful in 5 years.
Favorite movie or TV show and why?
That's a tough one. This is going to be a long-winded one, but I used to never watch TV ever until met Carson. She's got me on the TV train. The one that comes to mind right now, so weird with being an attorney, is Suits. That's a great, actually a great show. We've been watching that one some. That's kind of funny. Good show. Suits is good. Vikings, I love. There's a lot of good shows out there.
Yeah, with the speaking of internet and all that, the Netflix and just the ability
Oh,
of
huge.
people to be able to produce and really come up with some pretty creative stuff for inexpensive and get access to the whole world's pretty cool. Um,
It is.
one one and you already covered this maybe, so just hit it quick. What is one misconception about rural life that you would like to dispel?
Um, It's something I'm pretty passionate about, trying to think of one. I would say that you you're missing out if you that somehow you're missing out on the good parts of life if you live in a rural area. I think that you can really have from my view, a great lifestyle and make a big impact. And I think that people have the misconception of things are bigger is better, right? Faster pace is better. Um, the law firms in a bigger city, they're better. Not correct. A restaurant in a bigger area is better. Not correct all the time, right? And so I think that would be the big one is you somehow feel like you're missing out or that you aren't accomplishing what you want to accomplish because you don't live in a big area.
One thing you believe our community needs to thrive and grow?
Passionate citizens, individuals that want to make a positive difference. And I think that we have a lot of those people right now, which is amazing and great. And I think you have to have a collective of people who want to see the best for the community. And I think that momentum it snowballs, and having people who want to do the best they can, live here, work here, or work elsewhere and live here. But at the end of the day, do what they can do. Don't have to do everything, but do what they can do to make the community a better place. And again, I think we have a lot of people that do that right now, and it just snowballs, and then you see that positive energy going, and it's contagious. But that's the key to me is you could have the greatest infrastructure, internet, all those are super important, but I think you have to have people, community people who serve on county council, who take time away from their family to do things that, um, frankly, they could be doing other stuff, but they want to make the community a better place. That's what you have to have.
A personal or professional accomplishment that you are particularly proud of?
I'm proud of how we treat people when they walk into our office. That's the thing I'm the most proud of. I think that we've done a very good job of being a successful law firm and trying to grow and get better and represent people. The thing that makes me the proudest is when we meet with people, which happens a lot, and they say, "Hey, this is totally different from other experiences, or totally different from how I thought an attorney would talk to me. And y'all have treated me with respect, no matter who I am and where I come from. And the reason for that is because I'm, we're community members, right? You're a member of our community as well. So that's the thing I'm the most proud of is how we treat people at the law firm.
Is there a quote or mantra that you live by? It's question number 9.
Um, Not necessarily one. I would say the one that comes to my mind is the man in the arena.
The and then lastly, one piece of advice that somebody gave you along the way that's had a profound impact on your life.
Don't do anything in your life just because it's going to sound great at a cocktail party.
That's a good one. That is a good one. Well, Will, we
That's
appreciate
the best.
your. Yeah, that's a really
That's
good
the
one.
best advice. That's Dan Pezzold. I love Dan. He's a great guy.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Will, we appreciate your time, and that wraps up a really insightful conversation with you. We appreciate all you do for the community, and really thank you for taking the time to join us on this inaugural episode of Realizing Rural. We look forward to bringing everyone more content in the future. So stay tuned. Thanks a lot, Will. Talk soon.
Thank you.